Welcome to Things My Mother Forgot to Mention.
The podcast where we say everything our mothers didn't.
I'm Jan, a trauma therapist and author turned rogue storyteller, here to talk openly about the body, aging, and all the, wait, what? Moments of womanhood.
And I'm Patti, an online business and tech nerd whose purpose is to elevate the voices of women in our world and who doesn't believe in taboo topics. Things My Mother Forgot to Mention is the podcast for every woman who's ever said, wait, why didn't anyone mention this to me?
Join Jan and Patti, two outspoken, curious, outrageous women, as they dive headfirst into a messy, magical, and often WTF realities of aging, health, and quite simply being a woman.
From rogue chin hairs and vaginal thinning
to mental health, perimenopause, and scalp cancer. Yes, really.
Nothing is off limits. It's funny, it's raw, it's real talk your mother definitely skipped.
Let's get into it. Hey, Patti, how you going? How's it going?
Dan, how are you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there.
Excellent.
So today we're going to be talking about the symptoms of perimenopause and when do they start? And just in a little research that I've been doing on the internet, it says the typical range symptoms often begin in a woman's 40s, but they can start as early as mid to late 30s. Is that unbelievable?
It is. I didn't know that either until I was also researching about it. And I was like, wait, what? That's crazy. I always thought it was like mid 40s onward, but it can be early. Yeah.
I always thought it was mid 40s too. And this is the duration. Perimenopause can last anywhere from 2 to 10 years, depending on the individual. 10 years.
That's
Isn't
crazy.
that joyful?
And so perimenopause is the period that happens as you're starting like right before you get into menopause.
Correct.
And like before, basically as your period is starting to become weird.
Wax and
like,
wane.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a better way to say it. Wax and wane before your official, because right, I think menopause is you've had no period for a year and then your official menopause.
Right. That's how they define menopause.
Yeah.
Menopause, it says around 51 in most women is when menopause hits.
Okay.
And so perimenopause can start between 40 and 45, though earlier or later if possible. But really around 51 for most women, the average amount is that at around 51, 52 women actually hit menopause and they've had no period for 12 months. And that's how you define menopause.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. So I'm 44 and I have friends kind of in my age range, and like I have a lot of friends who are a bit older than me. I've always hung out with people older than me. So I have some friends that are like 48, 49, and they're all also starting perimenopause. And so I'm hearing a lot of like, and I'm actually surprised that I'm not having symptoms yet. I guess I should say I'm starting, I think, to have.
Be careful what you wish
I know,
for.
right? And I'm not wishing for it, let's be clear. But I'm starting to have night sweats a little bit. And I'm kind of like, well, it's just hot outside, but I'm really thinking about it a little bit. And I'm like, I don't know. I think it might be a little bit of that, but I'm hearing a lot of my friends starting to talk about that and describing hot flashes they're starting to have, which like you hear hot flashes, but apparently you don't know hot flashes until like some of the things they're telling me. One of my friend was videoing me and she's in her car and just like covered, and she's like she could barely breathe, and she's like, this is just, it's hell. It's absolutely horrible. And I was like, oh my God, like I just thought you get a little hot.
No. It means you want to rip your clothes off is what happens. That's the problem. You're around people. You can't just rip your, shirt off, but you want to.
Yeah.
Because it's hot.
Yeah. So
Well,
what was your experience with perimenopause?
Well, first of all, let me just say two things. Night sweats are different than hot flashes. You know that, right?
Right. Yeah.
So night sweats, which I have had and still have at my age, like actually 2 days ago, I ended up waking up and my whole nightgown was soaked. I had to change to another nightgown.
Yeah.
And hot flashes, I don't really have as many of those, but I did when I was much younger. But My experience, though, is I got thrown into perimenopause because I had, throughout my lifetime, which will be another topic for us, have had ovarian cysts that
Mm.
grew, and I lost my right ovary when I was 17, and I lost my le half of my left ovary when I was like in my mid 20s, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
So I only had a half of an ovary and had two sons on that, which is pretty amazing. It's a miracle it ever happened.
Yeah.
And so back in 2000, I was 47 and I had had more things happen to me. I ended up with getting spinal meningitis and then it went into viral pneumonia and I was in bed for almost
Oh my
6
God.
weeks and I lost and I'm not that heavy and I lost like 20 pounds. And so that threw me into perimenopause because I had no fat in my body. And that's where a lot of estrogen is stored, is in some of our tissues. So I lost all this weight. And I remember going to visit two really good friends of mine for dinner. And I remember just like leaning over almost like my head into the soup that I was eating. And I was crying, just saying how depressed I was and how I was having hot flashes and how I didn't want to be alive and how miserable I was. And I couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And I didn't even know such a term of perimenopause.
Yeah.
All I knew is that I was really, really freaking miserable. So my good friend who saw me was actually concerned about me. Here it is, I'm a therapist and I'm like on the edge. And she said to me, Chan, you need to go see a functional medicine doctor. Now, they're very different than your primary care doctor,
Right.
or these are actually a naturopathic doctor or a homeopathic doctor. They're DOs. And I was like, oh no, I tried a patch. I went to my primary care doctor and my gynecologist. They gave me a patch. Or they give you, ready? Premarin, which is a pregnant horse's urine. And that is, yes, I know, is that crazy? They give that to you. It's 10 times the strength of what we're used to. And that's usually they do. They either give you an antidepressant, they give you Premarin, or they tell you that, a patch. And all of those are synthetic estrogens. And
Right.
I'm telling you, I was off the charts. I was bleeding on, I was bleeding off, I was moody, I was crazy, I had all kinds of symptoms happening. And I decided, screw it. And I just ripped that patch off
Yeah.
and I stopped doing any of it. And I went to this woman who is a functional medicine doctor, and she put me on, thank God, she put me on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which is made from, ready, soy and wild yams. It's done in a
Mm.
compounding pharmacy.
Right, right.
And that changed the whole game. Oh my gosh. That pulled me out of my depression. It helped me like with mental status. I didn't have as many hot flashes. I felt like, estrogen is like that hormone is the life-giving hormone.
Right.
And it brought so much into balance for me that I was actually on HRT and planning to go back
Hmm.
for 22 years. And many doctors always say, "Oh, you shouldn't do that." And by the way, this is not this is not medical advice,
Right.
but you
Yeah.
should always check with your doctor or go to a functional medicine doctor and they check to see. And I was fine being on estrogen. There's not a lot of breast cancer running in my family, and it was a blessing for me.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And I know that like I have a lot of clients who are functional medicine doctors. And so I hear a lot just in general, like I see testimonials from their clients, and I just hear a lot about because they do more in-depth lab testing
Yep.
and they look at way more than a lot of like the surface kind of PCPs look for and all of that. And so I hear a lot of similar stories from people when they go to a functional medicine doctor because they actually are treating further in and like the actual stuff that's happening
Mhm.
versus I feel like sometimes when it comes to, and I'm not anti-Western medicine by any means, but I feel like in some cases there's a lot of like band-aid solutions versus
Yes.
let's actually
Yes,
get deeper and
they
deal with the
do.
real things that
Right.
are happening. Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. And I remember you had told me that before about the bioidentical
Hmm.
hormones. And I remember because I've heard a lot of things about soy and like a lot of people talking about, well, you don't want to have too much soy milk or too much
Yes.
soy because it's going to give you cancer. And so I understand now why people are saying that. But again, I think
Hmm.
you're right in saying like it depends on your makeup and like your history of things, but it's also, to each their own, and everybody needs something different sometimes.
Yeah. Right. And there's so many books. There's a book that I just finished reading called The New Menopause by Mary Claire Haver. She's a doctor. She's in Texas, by the way. She's down in your state. And she talks about these options too. And I'm telling you, there's so much more than my mother was put on Premarin, which
Mm,
is the pregnant horse's urine.
right.
It's where they take the estrogen. It's 10 times the amount that any woman's body needs. And she was off the charts. I don't even know what it was doing to her because I was so young. And then, of course, antidepressants came in, and then they were throwing antidepressants at it. But
Mm,
I'm telling you, when we get into bioidentical, I think it really has a lot of merit. And there's also something else I just learned about, which is called BioT. And I'm investigating this.
mm,
It's actually a pellet therapy that for men and women, if you even Google BioTE, it was recommended to me to look into. I'm going to go with my functional medicine doctor and not the BioT, but they use bioidentical hormones. They do blood tests, they test you, then they find out what you need, and then they have a little pellet that they put into your hip. Yes.
whoa.
And it dispenses the amount of drugs that you need, hormones, and it lasts for 4 months, and then you have to go in and have it done again. So as long as you're on it, you're always having to go every 4 months. The only thing that I'd heard from my doctor is that it's sometimes hard to manage the amount of hormone that you're getting, if especially over 4 months. You can't change it much.
Mm,
But anyway, there's so many more options these days, which I'm so thrilled about. And managing perimenopausal symptoms, really for people to really not have to do as much trauma and drama and
yeah.
suffering. Oh my God.
Yeah. And it's interesting that I also didn't really hear much about perimenopause until I started hitting in my 40s. And then all of a sudden, and because I remember people around me starting to be like, oh, perimenopause. I'm like, what the hell is perimenopause? Like, I know menopause, but like, that's all I know. And so it's been really interesting for me to learn a little bit about it. And like I said, as my friends are starting to go through it, then I was like, oh, maybe I should look into this. And I kind of thought because I've not had symptoms, except I think the night sweats, because I have a hormonal IUD in. And so I assumed it was that, but I researched
Sure.
that and it says that it shouldn't actually affect it because it's only one of the hormones. And so it's still not like it can help a little bit with like period stuff, which I don't have my period
Sure.
on anymore
Hmm.
because I'm on it. So I can't tell if that would be changing, right? That's the
Hmm.
one of the main symptoms. But like what are like some of the other symptoms? I think it's good to talk about that too, right? What are the other symptoms that people talk about with perimenopause? So I've heard a lot of, right, the night sweats start, hormonal mood swings, things like that happen, the periods that change. Sometimes they don't happen or then they're like super long, like that was what a friend of mine was saying, is that she had her period for like a month and then she would have
Wow.
nothing for 2 months and like so
Well, here's
like
what was my issue
yeah.
is I had my last son when I was 42. So
Mm,
he was just a little toddler when I started going into some of these perimenopausal symptoms,
yeah.
and I couldn't sleep. So I would be up all night because that's another perimenopausal is difficulty falling asleep, waking a lot at night, and insomnia and night sweats and anxiety. And I had all of those. And so being another mother again, I mean, I had a son who was even older. I was not sleeping. I was having night sweats. I was beside myself, crazy. Let's see what else. Mood swings, anxiety, depression, let alone, are you ready? Vaginal dryness,
Hmm.
discomfort during sex, decreased libido.
Right.
I mean, I was so exhausted, I couldn't even care less about it. I was just trying to get through the day.
Right. Yeah.
Headaches, migraines. For many women, migraines come. Weight gain around the abdomen, hair thinning. Yes, hair thinning and dry skin. And also burning, urinary tract infections. Doesn't it
Oh,
sound wonderful?
yeah, that's right. My friend's also, I was talking to her and she was also saying she's been getting more UTIs
Yep.
and the vaginal dryness and lower libido and all this. Yeah, I mean, we're so lucky. We're like women.
Whoa, being a woman is
Wow.
not easy. That's why I always said, if men only knew what it was like to be a woman and even give childbirth and your body and all it goes through, and then you get into perimenopause. Oh, come on, give me a
Yeah.
break.
Have you seen any of these? This is a little tangential, but I think it's kind of funny. Have you seen any of these videos, like whatever on social medias and such that show like men trying these
Yeah, the belly's on.
the period cramp things?
Oh, no, I haven't seen that one. I've seen him carrying a belly around for,
Oh, yeah. No, they have
no.
these, they like basically connect electrodes to their back and to their lower abdomens so that it gives a sensation of cramps. And women have said they try it also, and they're like, oh, it's pretty, like, it's obviously more surface than cramps tend
Mhm.
to feel. But like they get to like number two or three as it goes up to like 10, and they're like crying on the floor. And then they put it on women and they're like at a six. Like I was watching this one video and there was this woman and she's like
I've
munching
never
on
seen that.
something and it's like a six and she's like, yeah, okay. And then the guy flashes it to himself with the six and he's like
He's on the
fumbling
floor.
and falling over to the side. And she's like, yeah, it feels like a bad day. Or she feels like it feels like a bad day of a cycle. And
Wow, I've never heard of that.
yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
they're really interesting to watch. So now my algorithm keeps showing them to me. But like it's pretty interesting to see, we're so used to sort of pains of various types and ailments that just come with our existence. And men are like, right, because you bet if men were having perimenopause, they wouldn't be given horse urine as a solution.
Right. I remember when I found out that that's what it's made of. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
But
Anyway,
also
that's
that tracks.
crazy. Right, exactly. So, and so resources, maybe as we've kind of covered all of this,
Yeah.
is again, some of the research I did, hormone replacement therapy, most effective, hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, mood swings. I am a case study where it really worked with me.
Yeah.
And of course, when I reached a certain age, one doctor, gynecologist, male, said to me, get off those hormones. You're too old for them. Well, I went to a urologist like last week, and he said, you know what? The science around that is really changing, especially if it's bioidentical. He said that what they're looking at is that women into their 80s can be taking it because estrogen is this life force where it makes everything just hum along better.
Yeah.
So, hormone replacement therapy, check it out. Types estrogen for women who've had hysterectomies and estrogen and progesterone for those who have a uterus. Now, there's a difference there because I still have my uterus
Yeah.
and I was on estrogen, progesterone. And when women only have, they've had their uterus taken out, they only recommend doing estrogen.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that
Why
is
that is?
interesting.
Do you know why that is, or
I
you
have
have
no
to look it
idea,
up?
to tell you the truth. I would
Yeah.
have to talk to a professional about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Non-hormonal medications, SSRIs, which is I mentioned.
Yeah.
Paxil is one of them, and Effexor is another one. Gabapentin, it helps with night sweats. Let's see, they have some low dose vaginal estrogen, which I think is really a good solution too for that. You can either get cream or you can get Vagifem. They have an estring that also helps women keep the vaginal dryness away. An estring, it's kind of like a diaphragm, and you pop it in there,
Oh,
and it lasts
interesting.
for 3 months, and then you pull it out and you get another one. Yes.
Really?
Yes. It's a low level. I think it's 7.5 micrograms it delivers for 3 months. And then you have to, get a new one.
Huh.
Vagifem is different Vagifem is where it's an insert and you usually do it every other day. And so you have to remember what you're doing.
Yeah.
With the estering, it's a little bit easier because it goes for
Right.
3 months.
Right. I'm going to
Uh,
learn so much from you on this podcast, Jan, because
I've
because
used all of those things.
here's the thing is I've been really lucky, relatively speaking, as far as like my health goes. I've had some things, but
Yep.
like for the most part, I've not had a whole ton. And so like I'm just so excited to be learning all this stuff. Like my jaw has been dropped for like half of this episode.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, that's what I said. At my age, I'm a wealth of knowledge because most everything that can happen to someone has probably happened to me. But one last thing they're talking
Yeah.
about here, lifestyle changes, diet,
Mm-hmm.
rich in calcium and vitamin D, exercise, exercise. If I could say
Mm-hmm.
anything to everyone with all the issues I've had, is it doesn't have to be like go sweat and do an hour workout with lifting 50-pound weights. It doesn't have to be anything. It can be just walking
Yes.
every day for, a half an hour. I'm telling
Mhm.
you,
Yeah.
sleep hygiene. So avoid screens before bed, which I didn't do last night. Limit triggers, caffeine, alcohol. By the way, that's one thing my doctors told me, who she was a DO, and she says, Janet, more wine you drink, you're going to have more hot flashes and night sweats.
Oh.
And it triggers caffeine and alcohol can worsen hot flashes, which I never knew. And so that's something to think about for women. And last one, mindfulness things like yoga, meditation.
Yeah.
So isn't
Good
that great?
body.
All
Yeah.
those wonderful things.
Yeah, I
Well,
will say, and I'll second the walking thing. A friend of mine, I think officially moving into menopause at this stage, but we were just having this conversation, and she was saying how she recently had been taking as much as 4 Benadryl a night to go to sleep because she was struggling so much with sleep. And she has started walking recently because she's
and
moved
that helps.
place. And she was just saying, she's like, I haven't taken anything to fall asleep in days and days because she's
That's awesome
walking
because
and
she's
walking.
walking.
Yeah.
That's so great, Penny. And by the way, Benadryl is not good to take for a sleep aid. I'm telling you, it really messes with your brain. And you can do some research on it, but I was told I used to use Benadryl too.
Oh, yeah.
And it's only used for its purpose, which is,
Yeah.
so last thing here, which I was just talking about, is these are resources for perimenopause, vaginal and sexual health treatments, moisturizers, lubricants. Make sure when you're looking for lubricants that you get them so they're pH friendly to the vagina.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very, very important because then
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get a yeast infection if you don't watch that.
Mm-hmm.
DHEA, I highly recommend that as a supplement, and that's something you should talk to a functional medicine doctor about. It's dihexhydrone something. It's got a long name, but DHEA is also, and they have suppositories that you can use too. That would be another method without really getting into doing bioidentical hormones. And pelvic floor therapy for
Mm-hmm.
urinary symptoms and sexual dysfunction. And you know what I just did this week? I saw my physical therapist, who is a pelvic floor therapist, and she
Oh.
gave me some exercises, which are on YouTube, which you use Happy Baby and you learn how to breathe and relax the pelvic muscles. And that helps.
Not the same as like Kegels then, like
Oh
actual.
no, Kegels tightens the
Yeah,
muscles.
yeah, yeah.
For some women like me, I'm really tight. I'm not as some women are dropping, their pelvic floor is dropping, and that's a whole nother topic. But this has to do with women who are too tight because it cuts off the blood circulation to your
Oh,
bladder. So you have to learn how to really relax your pelvic floor muscles. And that's what a pelvic floor PT does. She teaches you how to do that.
I didn't even know there was a pelvic floor PT.
Oh, they are wonderful if you find a really good one. I found a really great woman, and she is absolutely awesome.
Yeah,
Now,
I
let me just tell you one little thing. If you are considering getting to a pelvic floor physical therapist, they do not just work with the outside of your body. They actually go in vaginally and work with the muscles that are in the vaginal area.
Oh, well, that makes sense. I mean, when you're working with physical therapists, they're always moving and stretching
Right.
and
But
manipulating.
this
So
is
that
where, when
makes
you're
sense.
working pelvic floor, So for anyone who's had any kind of sexual abuse,
Yeah.
this could be very triggering for him. So you make sure you talk to him about that.
Yeah. Wow. This is so great. I
Such a
mean,
wealth of knowledge.
great asterisk.
Well,
Great
ask Jan.
information. You know, this has
See,
been
you're
so
going to be
great.
all boned up on all of this. You're going to
I
be so
know.
like, I've got it all. And all of your girlfriends will be going to you, Patty, and they'll be going to you as the wisdom of Patty
Yes.
Meyer.
I know. I'll just be like, just listen to the episode. Just listen to the episode. It's just like, I know. As soon as I get any symptoms, I'm like, oh, wait. I know what to
Wait,
do
listen to
for
the
that.
episode.
What do I?
That's great. That's great.
That's so
Uh,
funny. Well, this has been just so interesting and so fun to talk about, which sounds weird, but it is fun to talk about this
yes, it
stuff
is. It is.
because I think part of I think why we're doing this too is I think there's so much out there where women feel alone and feel isolated in all of the
Yep.
symptoms and the
Yep.
things that they go through. And like you said, right? Like you, especially when hormones are involved, you start to feel crazy, and you feel
Yes, you
just like,
do.
what the hell is happening? And knowing that it's normal, knowing that, and also, right, when we don't talk a ton about vaginal dryness and libidos and things like that, because there's a lot of shame when it comes to, well, I'm not good enough, or I'm not, I should want to have sex all the time, or I should always be ready to go, or
Yep.
like all of that stuff.
Yep.
It's totally normal to have these symptoms
Yes.
and to go through this, and that
Yes.
there are solutions for it, I think is so important to talk about. So I love that we're doing this and talking about that so that women, as they go into it or have been through it, can go like, yes, I that is exactly what I experienced, and it feels good to know that it wasn't just me, you know.
Right. It's not me. I'm not the problem.
Yeah.
Everybody's having it, but we're just not talking about it. So I love being able to talk about it, and it helps me because I feel like my husband's really not that interested in this. But my girlfriends are. So
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
all of you out there, I love you, and I hope this helps.
All right. Well, till next time then.
Okay. Thanks, Patty.
Thank you.